Alright, I'm back at it again, and today we're going to be working on my wife's 2006 Ford 500, and we're going to be replacing the valve cover gaskets. Oh yeah! Alright, we'll start with the easiest component. Right here, you got to take this off. You just pull that little green clip to the side, and this thing pops right off. Disconnect this connector on the air intake. This hose, and we gotta loosen the hose clamp back here and pop these two clips off so we can remove the air intake. So next we gotta take this bolt out of the motor mount here, unbolt these two bolts and the other two bolts on that side so we can take this whole brace out. And then on the throttle we gotta disconnect this wiring harness, this tube right here. Got to take off this coolant hose and this lower one right here. You can either take it off from here or down under there. And then this coolant line right here. And then the 4 bolts for the throttle itself. We got to take the throttle off. You also want to take the battery out and the battery box out. 4 10mm bolts. And we got to pop off the terminal line, the terminal wires here. And the reason for taking the battery box out is because on the EGR valve down there, you got to take a 1 1/16 wrench and take off that big nut on the bottom of the EGR valve, because that connects to the intake manifold. And you got to take off this wire harness too on the back of the EGR valve. You also got to disconnect the brake booster hose going into the upper intake as well. You got to take this plastic hose off for the evap. Then you got to pop that little clip out that holds the evap line down to the upper intake. You got to pop this little clip open to release the fuel line from the upper intake, and you got to remove the fuel line from the fuel rail. Now we just got to take the 6 bolts out that hold, or the 8 bolts that hold the intake down. One there, one here, one here, one there, one here, there's one in there, and then one right there. And then once you get the upper intake all loose, you can maneuver it out and then get these 2 bolts off to get that solenoid out. And we remove this wire too. And you got to take off that vacuum hose on the back of the solenoid. And get some fuel coming out of there. And then yeah, this should pull right up. And we got to remove this connector too. See, we're learning how to do this together. So now I'm going to take my shop vac and then vacuum up all the debris in here. So I scraped off the surface there very lightly with a razor blade, and then took some rubbing alcohol and a rag and cleaned it up real well. And then we're putting some masking tape over the holes. This way when we take off the valve covers, no debris falls down in the cylinders. So I figured I'll do this outer valve cover first, get the gasket switched out and put it back on. This way this will be out of the way, and then we can just concentrate on that back one, because that one looks like it's going to be just a bit more difficult. We're going to have to take that power steering reservoir off and unbolt the line back there and some other wiring. So yeah, let's just get this front one out of the way so we don't have to worry about it. Alright, so I popped off these little hold downs on the bolts here. Push that back. Got to unbolt the 3 coil packs, disconnect them, and then I'll be able to take them out. And on the wiring harness wrapped around the front of the engine, there's 3 little nuts, one there, and then one down there that you can't really see, but it's down there. And this way that will disconnect this, and you can move this over. I took my shop vac, I vacuumed off the whole top of the valve cover. This way when we take it off, no debris falls down into the valve train there. And then yeah, now we got to take off all the bolts going around the valve cover and the 2 in the middle. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I had some oil seeping into the spark plug holes here, and also seeping out of the valve cover down the side of the head. Alright, now that we got all those bolts loosened up Now we're going to take the screwdriver, catch it in the corner somewhere, and then just give it a little twist to pop it free. There we go. Alright. And when you're taking this valve cover off, once you get it cracked free, you want to lift from this side and push out so you don't get hung up on the dipstick. If you lift it from this side, you're going to get jammed up and you won't be able to get past the dipstick. Now I'm not cleaning this whole cover off, but I am taking a toothbrush and I'm just cleaning out the groove where the gasket sits in. I got the old gasket removed from the valve cover and the 3 center ones, and we just put in the new one around it, and I got 2 of the center ones in. And if you look at these, you can see how this side's a lump, and that's the outer part, and then you can see this side has that little ring going around it. It's more flat, and that goes on the inner side. So this ring part goes in this way, and you can tell that by looking at this gasket, because this gasket only goes in one way, and when I looked on the inner part of it, you can see that little ring going around. The set I got also comes with these bolt rubbers that go underneath each bolt. I got the surface for the valve cover all cleaned up. I took a razor blade and just scraped off any little chunkage that was stuck to it. And I got off the old silicone that you're supposed to put where the seams are, where the casings meet. And there's one there, one here, one there, and one there. This particular valve cover gasket I got actually has little blocks, marks, where you actually put the RTV in each spot. So I got gray high temp RTV, and you want to make sure it's oil resistant. Alright, so we got the cover placed back on, all tightened down, got the 3 coil packs back in and plugged back up. So now we're going to start working on the back one. So far what I did here, I took these 2 bolts out for the reservoir for the power steering pump. I pushed it over, took that other bolt out for the metal plate, and I slid these 2 rubber grommets out from the reservoir. This way this is movable, and you can just pull this out and push it over to the side. This way you don't have to disconnect the hose. And that will give me clearance to slide the valve cover out. Now that we got this off to the side and out of the way, we gotta unscrew the power steering line right there. And there's a bolt holding a bracket down for this power steering line that wraps around here. So you gotta undo this bolt, and there's a little wire connector that's plugged into the bracket. You gotta unplug the wire connector or unmount it from the bracket. And then hopefully we'll be able to just pull this up out of the way. You gotta unbolt the 3 coil packs, disconnect them, and then I'll be able to take them out. And then I'm pretty sure I should be able to take the cover off after that. So yeah, we ended up taking that power steering line off. We just pushed it to the side. I got all the bolts on the valve cover loosened up, and now I just got to crack it open with a screwdriver. But yeah, you also got to unmount the wiring harness on the bolts in the back of the cover as well. We're going to crack her up. There we go. And then we should be able to remove it. This one, the seal stuck to the head itself. Gonna peel it off. It's a little dry rotted and brittle. Alright, we got the seal pulled off. Now we got to wipe down the mating surface and take a razor blade and just scrape it lightly just to get off any kind of debris that's stuck to it. Alright, we got the surface all cleaned up. Got my RTV placed on the seams where the casings join together. Now it's time to place the valve cover back on and tighten her up.
You were doing it before.
What?
Show me how you were fixing it.
This majiggy over there, this majiggy here. Take it off, put it on, take that majiggy off. Make it sound like it's so difficult. It's really not. Okay.
I love you, honey. Come out here and show me what you're doing.
Here.
Hey, whoa, what are you doing?
Put it back on. See the screws? Little round circly things. And put them in. And it's flat. Don't need no mechanic. No struggles. You make it sound like it's struggles. No struggles. Feely, honey.
Watch, you're going to put that over there. It's going to fall over. That's not how I had it.
Alrighty, we got that valve cover all tightened down. Also got that power steering pump reservoir all mounted back up, and the power steering pump line connected back on. Now when you're connecting this line back on, there's a little white O-ring seal. You got to make sure you thread it back up the threads. And I also put a little bit of Teflon tape on there just to make sure it seals off good. You might have to get a new one of those little white O-rings though, depending if yours is butched up real good or not. But yeah, again, I just threw the Teflon on there, hoping for the best. Also got the 3 little bolts that hold on the wiring harness to the valve covers, and this one in the back there. And we also got that bolt back on the back of the engine that holds on the power steering line. Now, depending on your seals on your intake manifold here, you may want to replace them as well, but mine still seem pretty firm. So I'm just going to wipe them down real good with a rag and some rubbing alcohol, and yeah, we're just going to throw it back on there. So got to pull my tape back off, and we'll be good to go. So we're going to hook this tube back up to the valve cover. Then we're going to place on the intake manifold. Oh, I'm tired. It is dark out. I want to finish this up for the wifey for tomorrow. So yeah, we got the intake manifold placed back on there, but when you do that, you want to leave it loose, and before you tighten anything down, you want to get the sensor back in, and then get the vacuum line connected back on it, and you can go ahead and plug the wire connector back in. And then down here, you want to go ahead and get this EGR bolt threaded on by hand tight. Then you can go ahead and tighten down the intake manifold, and then tighten the EGR bolt. Then you can go ahead and put your wire connector back on for your fuel injectors. You can get your purge solenoid hose connected back on, and put the little hold down tab back in. Also put the little hold down back on the fuel line, and you can reinstall your fuel line onto the fuel rail. And you can connect your EGR wire harness back to the EGR. Go ahead and connect your brake booster hose back to the intake. Hook the valve cover tube back up to the intake. Alright, now we're going to throw the throttle on and get these coolant lines all connected to it. Alright, we got the throttle back on. We got the one coolant line, this coolant line back on, and this one over here. And get your throttle positioning sensor wire hooked back up. Alright, so we got the battery box back in with the battery terminals reconnected. We got the air intake back on with the air temperature sensor reconnected. We got the tube going back from the intake to the valve cover, and the hose from the brake booster into the air intake. And now we just got to put the support bar back across for this motor mount. Alright, we got that support bar back on for the motor mount, and that's it. And that's how you change, what was that? Valve cover gaskets. Alright y'all, that's it for this one. Peace and love, keep it real, and I'll see you on the next one.